Deep inside a mountain, chambers exist that modern engineering cannot explain. These are not simple caves. They are perfect rooms carved from solid rock with a precision that defies our understanding of history. From the echoing halls of India's Barabar caves to the monolithic churches of Ethiopia's Lalibela, these structures share a common, baffling secret. Their smooth, mirror-like walls and perfect geometric forms were created without the advanced tools we rely on today. By the end of our journey, you will see ancient history not as a linear progression, but as a landscape filled with profound mysteries. We will explore how builders achieved acoustics that amplify specific frequencies and seams so tight they seem fused. How did they accomplish this with only simple chisels and hammers? What does it say about our own assumptions regarding the past? The narrow, winding Sikh Canyon in Jordan builds a sense of anticipation with every step, the towering rock walls almost touching overhead. Then, as you round the final bend, the sight takes your breath away. The facade of the Treasury, intricately carved directly into the rose-red cliff face, appears as if by magic. This is not a building that was constructed, but one that was revealed. It is a breathtaking example of a global phenomenon where cultures across the world, with no known contact, decided the most profound monuments would not be built up but carved down. From the Ajanta and Ellora caves in India to the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia, an identical architectural philosophy emerged independently. This was not merely a building technique, but a profound spiritual statement. Archaeologists note that for many of these cultures, carving into living rock was a way to connect with the eternal, to create sacred spaces that were physically part of the earth itself, a permanent and unshakable testament to their beliefs. The mountain was not just a site for a temple, it was the temple. The stunning geographical spread of these sites, from the deserts of Arabia to the highlands of Africa, suggests a universal human impulse to create permanence through subtraction. How did so many isolated cultures arrive at this same, incredibly difficult solution? The answer may lie not in shared blueprints, but in a shared human spirit, a deep-seated desire to leave a mark that was inseparable from the world itself. These chambers present a paradox that stumbles modern engineers. Today, we build upward, assembling structures from countless individual pieces. But these ancient sites were created in reverse, with immense volumes of stone meticulously removed to leave behind perfect forms. The precision involved goes far beyond what we would expect from the simple copper chisels and stone hammers archaeologists often assign to their builders. It is in the specific, consistent details where the mystery truly deepens. The walls in places like the Barabar caves are not just smooth. They possess a glass-like, reflective polish achieved on granite, a stone so hard it challenges modern power tools. Then there are the perfect geometric proportions, the right angles and flawless curves, executed deep inside mountains where light and measuring would have been incredibly difficult. Perhaps most baffling are the seams where massive stone blocks meet. In numerous sites, these joints are so impossibly tight that not even a sheet of paper can be inserted between them. Contemporary stonemasons using advanced diamond-tipped tools have attempted to replicate this kind of work. They often express a kind of professional awe, admitting their results are crude by comparison. One experienced mason noted that achieving such a polish on hard stone without modern machinery is one thing, but doing it consistently across vast, complex interiors is something else entirely. He called it not just craftsmanship, but an art form we have seemingly lost. The fact that these same impossible features appear in India, Ethiopia, South America, and the Middle East points to a startling possibility. This was not a fluke or a series of lucky accidents. It suggests that these diverse cultures might have possessed a foundational understanding of stonework, a sophisticated technology or technique that has since vanished from history. What common thread of lost knowledge could possibly connect such distant and isolated parts of the ancient world? The journey into this mystery begins in the humid air of ancient India. Around the 3rd century before the Common Era, a team of workers approached an unyielding granite cliff. Their task, commissioned by the Emperor Ashoka, was not to build but to subtract. They began the arduous process of carving inward, creating the Lomas Rishi cave. Its entrance is a marvel in itself, a perfect archway intricately carved to mimic the wooden structures of the time, yet rendered forever in solid stone. Stepping inside is like entering another world. The space opens into a vast rectangular hall, but it is the quality of the space that defies belief. The walls are not simply flat, they are perfectly parallel planes, rising to meet a ceiling that curves with a seamless, barrel-vaulted precision. The surfaces are not just worked smooth, they are polished to a mirror-like glassy finish that reflects light and sound in a way that feels utterly unnatural for hard granite. This was a sacred space created for ascetic monks, a place of profound silence and meditation. Yet the cave itself seems to possess a voice. The chamber's unique shape and impossibly smooth surfaces create a remarkable acoustic property. Specific sounds, particularly the rhythmic chanting of mantras, are not just echoed but amplified, their frequencies resonating through the stone as if the mountain itself is joining in the prayer. This level of precision presents a direct challenge to history. Archaeologists confirm that these caves were created before iron tools were in widespread use in the region. The builders would have had access to little more than simple stone hammers and perhaps copper or bronze chisels, tools we would consider entirely inadequate for such work. How could they have achieved such flawless geometry and a polish that still gleams today? The Barabar caves stand as a silent, formidable question mark, our first clear evidence that the conventional timeline of human technological progress might be missing a crucial chapter. Across the Indian Ocean, a different empire answered this ancient call to carve. In the highlands of Ethiopia, a visitor does not climb a mountain to find a holy site. They descend into the earth. The journey leads down into a labyrinth of deep trenches and tunnels, all hewn from rust-red volcanic rock, and there, rising from the solid ground, stand 11 monumental churches. They were not placed here, they were revealed, each one a single, continuous piece of the mountain itself, left standing after everything around it was painstakingly chiseled away. This is Lalibela, a spiritual capital created in the 12th century, a place that feels less like an architectural site and more like a living, breathing piece of faith. The scale of removal is almost incomprehensible. To create just one of these structures, workers had to first carve a massive, deep trench around a gigantic block of stone still attached to the earth. Then, from the top of that block, they began the dangerous, meticulous work of carving downward, hollowing out doors, windows, columns, and domed roofs, all from the top down. The vision and planning required for such a feat is staggering. One miscalculation, one error in judging the thickness of a wall or the angle of a roof, and the entire monolith could have fractured, rendering generations of work meaningless. But the mysteries only deepen once you step inside. The 11 churches are not isolated monuments. They are connected by a hidden network of tunnels and narrow passageways, some opening into sunken courtyards, others leading to ceremonial chambers. This subterranean complex functions as a single, interconnected spiritual machine. Furthermore, certain structures are aligned with celestial events, with windows and doorways positioned to capture the light of the sun or specific stars on holy days. Even the practical challenges were solved with genius. Despite being carved below ground level, a perennial flood risk, the entire complex is served by an intricate and effective drainage system that channels water away through channels cut into the living rock. Local tradition holds that such a monumental achievement could not have been the work of human hands alone. The stories tell of angels who joined the work each night, doubling the progress made by the laborers during the day. While historians see this as a beautiful metaphor for divine inspiration, it points to a tangible truth. The people who witnessed this creation could not comprehend how it was possible, so they filled the gap in understanding with the supernatural. Lalibela stands as a powerful testament to what human belief can drive people to accomplish. It forces us to ask whether our modern definitions of technology are too narrow, failing to account for the incredible things that can be achieved when skill is married to an unshakable, generation-spanning devotion. The same impulse to carve permanence from a mountain echoes in the desert of Jordan. To reach the heart of Petra, you must first walk the Sick, a natural fissure in the sandstone so deep and narrow it feels like a corridor. The path winds for over a kilometer with towering cliffs on either side that block out the sun, building a profound sense of anticipation. Then, through a final, slender opening, the treasury's facade is unveiled, not all at once, but in a breathtaking, piecemeal reveal. This is not a building placed against the rock, it is the rock itself, transformed into a masterpiece of classical architecture. The Nabateans, a civilization of traders who commanded desert caravans, created this city not by building up, but by carving down, with an ambition that still stuns the modern mind. Their genius, however, was not limited to artistry. Petra is a city born from a paradox, a thriving metropolis in the heart of an arid desert. The Nabateans were master hydrologists. They constructed a complex network of channels, dams, and cisterns that captured scarce winter rains, controlled flash floods through the narrow Sick, and stored vast quantities of water, allowing tens of thousands to live and flourish where it should have been impossible. This sophisticated hydraulic engineering existed alongside their mysterious stone working prowess. They carved everything from the ornate, columned tombs to simple dwellings directly into the multi-hued cliff faces. The precision of this work is what raises so many questions. The treasury's facade features perfect Corinthian capitals, intricate friezes, and classical pediments, all executed with a fluency that seems to belong more to the Mediterranean world than the deserts of the Middle East. How did this caravan culture acquire such a refined knowledge of classical architecture, and more importantly, how did they apply it on such a staggering scale? The creation of the treasury alone required the removal of thousands upon thousands of tons of stone from the cliff face. The logistical puzzle of managing a workforce to accomplish this, of feeding and housing them in a desert environment, and of equipping them with tools efficient enough for such a monumental task, remains partially unsolved. Petra stands as a powerful convergence of artistic vision and practical engineering, a city that challenges our understanding of what an ancient society, driven by commerce and a will to survive, could achieve. Yet even the marvels of Lalibela and Petra do not fully prepare you for the sheer audacity of the Kailasa temple in India's Ellora caves. This is not merely a carved chamber or a church revealed from rock. It is an entire temple complex, the largest monolithic structure on our planet, conceived as a scale model of Mount Kailash, the mythical home of the god Shiva. The numbers alone defy comprehension. To create it, workers did not carve into a cliff face. They began at the top of a single, massive expanse of basalt and carved downward, removing an estimated 200,000 tons of solid rock in a process of sheer subtraction. This vertical excavation method required a vision that borders on clairvoyance. Every pillar, every staircase, every three-story tower had to be perfectly visualized in the minds of the master planners before a single strike of the hammer. There was no room for a major error. Unlike building with blocks, you cannot replace a piece of the mountain you have mistakenly chiseled away. This was a project of absolute commitment, a generational undertaking by the Rashtrakuta dynasty in the 8th century that turned architecture inside out. But the true wonder of Kailasa lies not just in its staggering scale, but in the intricate artistry preserved within that scale. The entire complex is adorned with a breathtaking array of sculptures. Gods, goddesses, and mythological scenes are rendered with a fluid, dynamic precision that would be demanding for a sculptor working on a small, free-standing statue. Here, that artistry was executed on a colossal, architectural canvas, with every figure and frieze carved directly from the living rock, meaning a single slip could have marred the entire temple wall. How do you achieve such delicate, expressive details when your canvas is a mountainside and your tools are, according to conventional history, simple chisels and hammers? The Kailasa temple stands as a monument that challenges the very logic of historical progression. It represents a peak of rock-cut technology so advanced that we struggle to chart the climb that led to it, leaving us to wonder if our map of the past is missing entire mountain ranges of human achievement. Even the staggering ambition of Kailasa was guided by a clear historical and religious purpose, leaving a trail of cultural context in its wake. But what happens when a discovery offers no such trail, when it appears from the past with no explanation at all? This is the enigma of the Longyou Grottoes. In 1992, a group of farmers in China's Zhejiang province decided to drain a series of local ponds believed to be bottomless. As the water receded, it revealed not a natural abyss but the entrance to an immense flooded cavern. What they had found was the first of 24 colossal, man-made caves, each one carved with breathtaking precision deep into the solid sandstone. The discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological world, for here was a project of staggering scale, yet it was a project that history had forgotten entirely. No written record, no local legend, not a single scroll or chronicle from any dynasty made mention of their construction. These silent halls had been carved, used, and then completely abandoned to time, leaving behind a historical blank slate. Stepping into one of these grottos is like entering a subterranean palace built by ghosts. The scale is overwhelming, with some chambers reaching the height of a 10-story building. The walls, ceilings, and the dozens of massive support pillars left standing are not rough-hewn. Every single square inch of surface area is covered in a uniform, decorative pattern of parallel chisel marks, a deliberate, swirling design that must have required an unimaginable amount of labor purely for aesthetic effect. This is not the work of rushed miners, it is the work of artists and master engineers. The acoustic properties of the rooms add another layer of mystery. Just like in the Barabar caves, sound behaves in strange ways here. The specific reverberations and echoes would have amplified certain frequencies of the human voice, strongly suggesting these spaces were designed for ritual or ceremonial gatherings. Yet we have no idea what those ceremonies were or who performed them. The engineering only deepens the puzzle. Each grotto is a self-contained masterpiece of structural integrity. The roof sections are uniformly thick, a critical feature that prevents collapse. Achieving such consistent thickness across a vast, curved ceiling, deep underground and without modern laser levels or measuring devices, is a feat that baffles contemporary engineers. How did the planners ensure every part of the ceiling was carved to the exact same depth, judging solely from below? The removal of an estimated 1 million cubic meters of stone had to be meticulously managed, yet there is no rubble, no quarry site, no evidence of where all that rock was taken. The Longyou grottoes present a mystery that transcends how they were built, reaching into the more profound question of why. A project of this magnitude requires immense resources, organized labor, and a powerful driving purpose. Yet it left no name, no date, and no memory behind. It is a monumental statement from the past, carved in stone, whose meaning we can only guess at. Separated by vast oceans and centuries, these sites whisper a secret in a common technical language. The same impossible features appear again and again. In a granite cave in India, a sandstone tomb in Jordan, and a basalt temple in India, you find perfect 90-degree angles where walls meet floors. You find surfaces polished to a mirror-like optical quality that should not exist, and you encounter acoustic properties that transform sound, amplifying specific frequencies in a way that feels deliberate, not accidental. The most baffling part is the variety of rock itself. Granite is immensely hard, sandstone is relatively soft and crumbly, and basalt falls somewhere in between. Each material requires a completely different approach, a different set of tools and techniques to work effectively, yet the results are eerily consistent. This is not a case of one culture perfecting a style and others copying it. This is a case of multiple cultures, isolated by geography and time, somehow arriving at the same pinnacle of stone-working excellence. Materials scientists who have studied these sites often express a quiet astonishment. They calculate the sheer energy and time required to polish a granite wall to a glassy finish using only sand, water, and manual labor. The numbers are staggering, suggesting workforces toiling for generations on a single chamber. The precision of the angles and the consistency of the curves point to something beyond simple skill. They suggest the use of sophisticated measuring systems and a profound understanding of geometry, applied in deep, dark spaces where light was a precious commodity. When the same set of highly sophisticated solutions emerges independently across the globe, it stops looking like coincidence and starts to look like principle. It suggests that these cultures, in their drive to create the permanent, might have tapped into a foundational understanding of stone, a lost technology that approached the material not with force, but with a kind of resonant knowledge. We are left to wonder if our modern tools, for all their power, are simply too crude to replicate the subtle artistry of the ancient world. These smooth walls hold a silent testimony in the marks left by their creators. Look closely at the surfaces of these chambers, and you find a story carved in contradictions. The walls of the Barabar caves, for instance, are covered in long, sweeping striations. These are not the short, choppy marks of a hand wielding a simple chisel. They are uniform, parallel lines that run for meters without a single waver, as if guided by a mechanical aid that ensured a perfectly straight and consistent cut. This same pattern appears in Petra and in the Longyou grottoes, a ghostly signature of a technique we cannot replicate. Even more telling is what is missing. On a typical ancient construction site, you would expect to find evidence of mistakes, of trial and error, of chisel slips corrected and lines redrawn. But here, on these immense projects, the walls are startlingly clean. The cuts begin and end with absolute precision, their depth remaining perfectly consistent, suggesting the workers could measure their progress as they carved, even deep within a mountain where light was scarce. The most baffling paradox lies in the final finish. The initial tool marks suggest the use of basic metal implements, yet the final surface is a glassy polish on incredibly hard stone. Achieving such a finish with the copper or bronze tools available to these cultures is a problem that has long troubled researchers. Metallurgical analysis confirms that these softer metals would have dulled almost immediately against granite or hard basalt, requiring constant resharpening and making the vast scale of work seem almost impossible within a human lifetime. How could a soft copper chisel both carve the stone and then vanish, leaving behind a surface that requires modern diamond abrasives to replicate? The tool marks are not just scratches in rock, they are physical evidence of a process that defies our timeline. They point toward a method, perhaps a lost art of stone softening or a vibrational technology, that allowed these builders to work with stone as if it were clay, achieving a final perfection that our own powerful tools struggle to match. The silence in these chambers is an illusion. Stand in the right spot within the oracle chamber in Petra, and a whisper can travel with impossible clarity across the vast space, heard by a person dozens of meters away as if spoken directly into their ear. This is not a quirk of architecture, it is acoustic engineering of the highest order. Across the ancient world, these mountain-carved spaces were not just built to be seen, but to be heard. In the subterranean labyrinth of the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, a complex carved from solid limestone over 5,000 years ago, something extraordinary happens. A deep male voice chanting at a specific low frequency, around 110 Hz, does not simply echo. It resonates, the sound waves amplifying and filling the entire chamber with a powerful, vibrating hum that seems to penetrate the very bones of the listener. Modern acoustic analysis confirms what the body instinctively feels. This chamber and others like it are tuned. They have a specific resonance frequency, a natural pitch at which the room itself begins to sing. Scientific measurements reveal carefully controlled reverberation times and the presence of standing wave patterns, where sound reflects back and forth between the parallel walls, reinforcing itself at precise points in the room. These phenomena cannot be the result of random chance. They are the product of design. For this to occur, the builders needed a sophisticated, almost intuitive understanding of sound physics. They had to know how to shape hard stone to manipulate wavelengths, how the curvature of a ceiling would focus sound like a parabolic dish, and how the density and polish of the walls would reflect specific tones while absorbing others. Acoustic engineers who study these sites note that achieving such effects today, even with computer modeling, is a complex task. It requires predicting how sound will behave in a three-dimensional space before a single cut is made. The builders of the hypogeum and those of the oracle chamber did this with nothing but hand tools and an ear for the hidden music of stone. This suggests their knowledge extended far beyond simple quarrying. They were masters of sensory experience, using the mountain itself to create instruments for ritual, for communication, or for altering states of consciousness. The very rock was made to speak, and we are only just beginning to understand its language. But the ancient builders did not stop at shaping sound. They reached for the heavens themselves, carving their understanding of the cosmos into the very bones of the earth. Twice a year, on February 21st and October 21st, a miracle of light and shadow occurs at Abu Simbel in Egypt. The rising sun pierces the deep, mountain-carved temple, its rays traveling over 60 meters through the inner hall to illuminate the statues of three gods seated in the sacred innermost shrine. The fourth statue, the god of the underworld, remains forever in shadow. This is not a happy accident. It is a precise astronomical alignment, a calendar in stone, celebrating the coronation and birthday of the pharaoh Ramses II. 1,000 years earlier and thousands of kilometers to the north, a different culture performed a similar feat. At Newgrange in Ireland, a massive, ancient mound covering a stone passage tomb was designed so that for a few precious minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a narrow beam of sunlight would travel up a specially constructed light box and flood the central burial chamber with light, banishing the seasonal darkness. The alignment of these sites reveals a universal human impulse to connect the earthly and the celestial. From the windows of Lalibela's churches that capture starlight, to the way certain Petra tombs frame the setting sun on specific dates, these structures are more than buildings. They are permanent observatories, giant stone dials marking the passage of time. The technical challenge of achieving this is almost beyond comprehension. Imagine the process. You are an ancient surveyor, tasked with ensuring that a beam of sunlight will strike a specific point deep inside a mountain you have not yet carved. You must calculate the exact angle of the sun on a specific day, perhaps decades in the future, and then direct workers to hollow out a perfectly straight corridor of a precise length and height, all from the outside in, with no room for error. This requires a breathtaking command of mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. Modern archaeoastronomy, the study of how ancient cultures understood the sky, has uncovered these patterns across the globe. The consistent encoding of solstices, equinoxes, and star cycles into rock-cut architecture suggests these cultures shared a deep, foundational knowledge. They saw the movement of the heavens as a sacred clock, and they built their most enduring monuments to be in perpetual harmony with its rhythm. This celestial layer adds a new dimension to the mystery. It was not enough to carve a perfect chamber. The chamber had to also be a perfect instrument, one that could capture a single ray of sunlight once a year, transforming a dark, silent space into a theater of cosmic connection. The numbers behind these mountains of carved stone create a time problem that refuses to be easily solved. Let us take the Kailasa temple as our first example. Mainstream historical records suggest its primary construction was a project of the 8th century, spanning a few decades under the Rashtrakuta dynasty. Yet when modern engineers calculate the sheer volume of rock removed, the figures are staggering. The consensus points to the removal of approximately 200,000 tons of solid basalt. Now imagine a workforce of 100 laborers, a substantial number for any ancient site. Each worker would need to quarry, remove, and dispose of an implausible amount of rock every single day for years on end. The logistical reality makes this timeline seem almost mythical. Where did all the rubble go? An estimated 1 million cubic meters of stone was chiseled from the Kailasa complex alone, yet the surrounding area shows no quarry site large enough to hold that volume of debris. This suggests a highly organized system for hauling away the waste, a mammoth operation requiring thousands of workers just for transport and disposal, all of whom needed food, water, and shelter in an era before industrial machinery. The same paradox echoes in the silent halls of the Longyou Grottoes. There, the removal of an even greater volume of sandstone, again with no trace of the resulting rubble, hints at a level of project management and labor organization that rivals a modern mega-project. When we apply standard engineering estimates for daily progress with simple hand tools, the math simply does not add up. To complete these structures within the accepted historical windows, workforces would have had to achieve daily rock removal rates that push the boundaries of human physical endurance, even with perfect coordination and no interruptions for weather, illness, or conflict. This scale paradox forces a difficult question. Did these projects take far longer than our historical records indicate, perhaps continuing for centuries across multiple, unrecorded generations? Or did the builders possess methods of working stone that were dramatically more efficient than the simple chisels and hammers we assume they used? The silent, polished walls seem to suggest the latter. pointing to a lost chapter in the story of human innovation. Granite is one of the hardest stones on our planet, a dense matrix of quartz and feldspar that can blunt a modern steel chisel in minutes. Yet ancient builders chose it again and again as their canvas, polishing it to a liquid, reflective shine. The challenge only multiplies when we consider the other materials they mastered. Soft, crumbly sandstone, which fractures under the slightest misplaced blow, was carved in Petra into columns and capitals of breathtaking delicacy. Dense, stubborn basalt was hollowed into the colossal temple of Kailasa. Each of these stones behaves differently, demanding a unique set of tools, pressures, and techniques. A method that works for soft sandstone would be useless against granite, and a tool hard enough to scratch basalt would shatter the fine details in sandstone. Yet the same flawless results appear across all of them. This is the core of the material science puzzle. It is not just that they worked stone well, but that they worked every stone perfectly. Modern experiments with replicated ancient tools, copper chisels and stone hammers, quickly reveal the problem. On granite, these tools become dull, deformed remnants after just a few hours of work. The amount of labor needed to achieve a simple cut becomes astronomical, let alone the final, legendary polish. To create that glassy surface on granite, which contains abrasive quartz crystals, you need a polishing agent harder than the quartz itself. Today, we use industrial diamonds. What did they use, and how did they apply it with such impossible consistency across vast, vertical walls? The mystery deepens when you look for the physical evidence of this immense labor. At a modern construction site, or even a medieval quarry, the ground is littered with the debris of creation, broken tools, stone chips, and discarded materials. At many of these ancient sites, that debris is conspicuously absent. The areas around the Longyou Grottoes or the Barabar caves are not piled high with millions of tons of stone chips. This points to one of two baffling conclusions. Either these cultures maintained a level of site cleanliness that rivals a modern microchip factory, meticulously sweeping away every fragment of evidence, or their method of working stone produced very little waste in the first place. The latter possibility leads to a radical idea. What if they were not chiseling and pounding the stone away, but somehow separating it, perhaps through a process that disaggregated the stone at a molecular level? This is not pure speculation. Microscopic analysis of the polished surfaces in places like the Barabar caves has revealed something astonishing. The crystalline structure of the rock at the very surface has been altered. The minerals show signs of having been heated and fused, creating a thin, glass-like layer that is fundamentally different from the stone beneath it. This kind of transformation, known as vitrification, typically requires intense, localized heat and pressure, the kind we generate today with power tools and laser cutters. It suggests the ancient artisans were not just scratching the stone smooth. They were using a technique, now lost to time, that could temporarily change the very nature of the material, making it malleable for shaping, and then letting it harden into a perfect, sealed mirror. The stone itself tells a story that our reconstructed tools cannot write, a story of a technology that approached matter not with brute force, but with a whisper. The walls of these chambers are so geometrically perfect that they seem to defy the very nature of handcrafted work. Across vast surfaces, deviations from perfect planes and precise angles are measured in mere millimeters, a level of accuracy we associate with machine tooling, not ancient artisans working by torchlight. This is not just skilled craftsmanship, it is precision engineering. The evidence is etched into the stone itself, revealing a sophisticated use of mathematical principles. In the layout of the Kailasa temple, for instance, researchers have identified the consistent application of the golden ratio, a specific proportional relationship of approximately 1.618 to 1, revered for its aesthetic harmony. The same ratio appears in the dimensions of chambers in Petra and the structural pillars of the Longyou grottoes. Even more strikingly, the constant pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, is encoded into the circular designs and archways of sites across India and the Middle East. These were not random numbers, they were foundational elements of the design, a conscious choice to build sacred geometry directly into the earth. Maintaining this flawless geometry presented an almost unimaginable challenge. The builders were not starting with a blank slate or a level foundation. They were confronting the chaotic, irregular forms of natural mountains and cliffs. Before a single ceremonial chamber could be carved, they had to first establish a master baseline, a true horizontal and vertical reference point from which every subsequent measurement would descend. How did they ensure that a hallway carved from two opposite sides of a mountain would meet in the middle with perfect alignment, or that a column carved from the top down would be perfectly plumb? They likely used massive water levels, intricate systems of plumb bobs, and perhaps even reflected sunlight to project guiding lines deep into the darkness. The planning had to be absolute, a three-dimensional blueprint held in the mind and executed with unwavering discipline, because in subtractive architecture there are no second chances. The most baffling clue, however, comes from the very units they used to measure their world. Metrology, the science of measurement, has uncovered a pattern that stretches across continents. Researchers analyzing the dimensions of the Barabar caves in India, the inner chambers of the Great Pyramid in Egypt, and even the stone circles of prehistoric Europe have found evidence of a standardized measurement unit. This unit, often called the megalithic yard, appears again and again. It is as if these disparate cultures, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, were all using the same ruler. This cannot be explained by trade or cultural diffusion. The timelines and distances are too great. It suggests something more profound, that these builders were tapping into a universal system of proportion, perhaps one derived from the dimensions of the Earth itself or from fundamental mathematical constants. The stone tape measures they left behind whisper of a connected, global understanding of our world that our standard history books have yet to record. These silent stone chambers were not isolated from the world above, but masterfully connected to it through the flow of water. The true genius of many rock-cut sites reveals itself not in the halls meant for people, but in the channels carved for a different purpose, the management of a vital and often destructive resource. Nowhere is this hydraulic mastery more apparent than in the desert city of Petra. Here, in a landscape defined by aridity, the Nabateans created a lush, thriving metropolis. Their solution was a network of hydraulic engineering so advanced it feels almost modern. They did not just build water channels, they carved them directly into the living rock of the surrounding cliffs and the narrow sick canyon itself. These were not simple gutters, they were precisely engineered conduits designed with a consistent, gentle gradient that allowed water to flow from distant springs directly into the heart of the city, without ever stagnating or eroding the stone. The calculations required to achieve this are staggering. To ensure a consistent flow over kilometers of terrain, the builders had to account for minute changes in elevation, calculating the precise drop needed over long distances to maintain water pressure without causing destructive turbulence. They did this without laser levels or transits, likely using nothing more than water-filled trenches and sighting rods to establish a true level across vast, uneven desert landscapes. The system was also built for resilience. They carved massive, bell-shaped cisterns deep into the mountain rock, reservoirs that could hold millions of gallons of rainwater collected from paved catchments on the cliff tops. These cisterns ensured a reliable supply through the long, dry seasons. Furthermore, they engineered the entire city to withstand the desert's rare but violent flash floods. The main entrance, the Sick, was not just a ceremonial corridor, it was a controlled spillway. The Nabateans constructed a massive dam to divert floodwaters away from the Sick, and within the canyon itself, they carved diversion tunnels that would safely channel excess water around the city center. This integration of water management represents a profound layer of technical knowledge. It shows that the builders understood their environment not as an obstacle to be conquered, but as a system to be harmonized with. They were not just master sculptors, they were geologists and civil engineers who could read a mountain and anticipate the path of every drop of rain, turning a potential threat into the very source of their civilization's life. This possibility of forgotten methods leads us to the first compelling theory, that of lost ancient technologies. History is not a simple upward climb of progress. It is a landscape of peaks and valleys where advanced knowledge can be forgotten in a single generation. We have clear examples of this technological regression. The Romans created a concrete that could set underwater and grow stronger with centuries of sea waves, a formula that was lost after their empire's decline and only rediscovered in modern times. The legendary swords of Damascus steel, with their distinctive, watery patterns, held an edge and flexibility unmatched for centuries, yet the precise metallurgical process for creating them vanished from the Middle East. In both cases, the knowledge was not lost in a cataclysm, but faded away as specialized guilds of craftspeople dwindled, their apprenticeships ended, and their secret methods died with them. Historians note that complex technologies are fragile, often held by a small, dedicated group. If that chain of transmission is broken, the knowledge can disappear as completely as if it had never existed. This framework offers a powerful lens for viewing our mountain chambers. What if the builders of the Barabar caves or Kailasa temple possessed a similar suite of specialized, guarded techniques? Perhaps they had developed advanced abrasives far superior to simple sand that could polish granite to a mirror finish with less effort. Maybe they understood a method of stone softening, using plant-based chemical solutions or even specific sonic frequencies to temporarily make hard rock more malleable, like working stiff clay. This would explain the tool marks that suggest the stone was being shaped more than just pounded away. Their undeniable mastery of acoustics points to a formal, codified understanding of sound physics, principles that were later forgotten. The theory suggests these cultures reached a high watermark of stone-working technology, a peak from which we later descended. Their achievements do not defy the laws of physics, but rather, they demonstrate a sophisticated application of those laws through methods that have since slipped through the cracks of history, leaving behind only their magnificent, silent results. But the theory of isolated genius cannot fully explain the uncanny parallels. The same precise geometry, the same signature polish, and the same acoustic principles appear in India, Ethiopia, and the Americas. This leads to a second, compelling possibility, that of sophisticated knowledge transmission. Long before the age of global travel, our world was already connected by invisible threads of exchange. Ancient trade routes like the Silk Road were not just pathways for silk and spices. They were information superhighways carrying ideas, stories, and technical knowledge across vast distances. Caravan masters and sailors could have carried tales of impossible stonework from one continent to another, inspiring new generations of builders. Anthropologists who study how complex skills are passed down note that written blueprints are not always necessary. For millennia, the most vital technical knowledge was transmitted orally and through direct, hands-on demonstration. A master stonemason would take on apprentices, teaching them not just how to strike a chisel, but how to listen to the stone, to feel its grain, and to understand its hidden weaknesses. This master-apprentice chain could have carried a complete system of knowledge, from the secret recipe for a superior polishing abrasive to the mathematical formulas for calculating celestial alignments across generations and continents. We see evidence of this in shared cultural motifs. The lotus flower, a symbol of purity, appears in the art of both ancient Egypt and India. The mythological figure of the flood hero is found in Mesopotamian, Hebrew, and Mesoamerican stories. If these foundational myths could travel, why not the principles of sacred geometry or the acoustic properties of a perfectly curved arch? The knowledge may have been adapted and refined by each culture that received it, tailored to their local stone and their own spiritual beliefs, but the core technical principles remained recognizably the same. This theory elegantly addresses the puzzle of the similar yet distinct results. It suggests a slow, deliberate diffusion of a high-level understanding of physics and engineering, a shared technological heritage that was woven into the fabric of ancient global exchange long before history began to write it down. Yet another explanation emerges not from the realm of tools, but from the human spirit itself. Across the world, the stories told about these sites consistently feature supernatural aid. The legends of Lalibela speak of angels working alongside masons, doubling their progress each night. In South America, tales describe how the stones for Sacsayhuaman were softened by a magical plant extract, allowing them to be shaped and fitted. These are not isolated fables, but a persistent thread woven through the cultural memory of these places. For the communities who lived with these monuments, the accomplishments were so far beyond ordinary human endeavor that their origins were attributed to divine intervention or the work of sages with superhuman abilities. These narratives challenge our purely material understanding of history. Modern research has begun to explore how altered states of consciousness, achieved through deep meditation, rhythmic chanting, or sensory deprivation, can radically shift human perception and focus. In such states, the boundaries of the self can feel dissolved, potentially allowing for extraordinary feats of concentration and physical endurance. While this does not explain the physical removal of millions of tons of stone, it opens a door to considering the mindset of the builders. Perhaps the workers were not merely laborers, but participants in a profound spiritual practice, their work infused with a collective intention that transcended individual limitation. Some researchers propose that these myths of gods and angels are not literal accounts, but powerful metaphors for a lost technical reality. The story of a magical plant that softens stone could be a mythological encoding of a real, plant-based chemical solution that effectively disaggregated certain types of rock. The angels who worked through the night might symbolize a highly disciplined, round-the-clock labor system organized by a priestly class. From this perspective, the supernatural legends are not falsehoods, but a different language for describing a technology so advanced that it appeared, to later generations, indistinguishable from magic. This theory remains controversial, as it ventures into areas that are difficult to quantify or prove with physical evidence. Yet its power lies in its respect for the source material, the stories passed down by the very cultures that created these wonders. It asks us to consider whether our modern separation of the spiritual from the technical is a limitation, and if the builders possessed a unified knowledge where profound belief and advanced engineering were not in conflict, but were two sides of the same chisel. These impossibly smooth walls might not be the product of a single, brilliant generation, but of countless hands over an immense stretch of time. A fourth explanation suggests we are not seeing a lost technology, but the power of cumulative effort, where centuries of continuous refinement slowly sculpted perfection from the raw mountain. In this view, a project like the Kailasa temple may have been initiated by the Rashtrakuta dynasty, but its ultimate, breathtaking form could be the result of work that continued for hundreds of years after its official founders were gone. This extended timeframe theory replaces a mystery of method with a mystery of endurance, proposing that what appears impossible in a few decades becomes achievable if a culture maintains a sacred project across 50 or even 100 generations. The evidence for this lies in the stone itself. At many rock-cut sites, archaeologists have identified clear phases of construction and modification. A chamber might be started in a rough, utilitarian form, only to have its walls replastered and repolished centuries later. An initial, simple shrine could be dramatically enlarged and elaborated upon by a later dynasty, each new group of artisans building upon and refining the work of their ancestors. This process of continuous improvement, where small innovations in technique and measurement accumulated over time, could eventually lead to the level of precision that stuns us today. It was not a sudden leap, but a slow, relentless march toward an ideal held in the cultural memory. This idea is supported by ongoing controversies in dating these monuments. While official chronologies often assign a specific century to a site's primary construction, alternative dating methods, such as geological analysis of tool marks or the weathering of exposed surfaces, sometimes suggest a much older origin. The debate is not just about a few years, but sometimes about millennia, pointing to the possibility that the first cuts into a mountain may have been made in a forgotten age, with later cultures inheriting and perfecting a work already in progress. This theory challenges our linear view of history not with advanced physics, but with the profound patience of the human spirit. It asks us to reconsider the very pace of ancient innovation, where a single project could become the defining purpose of a civilization, its meaning and methods passed down like a sacred flame, slowly transforming a cliff face into a mirror over 1,000 years of unwavering devotion. The polished surfaces themselves contain clues pointing toward methods we are only beginning to test. A fifth theory proposes that ancient builders wielded natural forces and chemical knowledge now absent from our historical records. This line of inquiry moves beyond chisels and hammers to consider possibilities like geopolymer techniques, where stone could be disaggregated and then recast like a liquid concrete, or the use of powerful sonic tools that vibrated rock apart along its natural crystalline lines. The evidence lies in the stone's own testimony. Microscopic analysis of some polished granite surfaces reveals a thin, vitrified layer where the minerals appear to have been fused by intense heat, a transformation difficult to achieve without modern equipment. Other researchers point to unusual tool marks that sweep in long, unbroken curves, lacking the stop and start pattern of a handheld percussive tool. These marks seem more consistent with a continuous cutting process, perhaps one guided by a focused energy source or a chemical agent that effectively softened the stone for a short time. Experiments with such ideas, while speculative, have yielded intriguing results. Some have demonstrated that specific plant extracts, when applied to certain types of sandstone, can create a temporary clay-like malleability, allowing the stone to be shaped and molded before it re-hardens. Others have explored how high-frequency vibration or cavitation can fracture rock along precise planes with minimal effort. While mainstream archaeology remains cautious, these unconventional approaches directly address the physical puzzles that traditional toolkits cannot solve. They offer a potential explanation for the lack of tool debris, the impossibly tight seams, and the glassy finishes on impossibly hard rock. The theory suggests that the true tools of these master builders may not have been metal implements, but a profound understanding of chemistry, acoustics, and geology, a forgotten science that allowed them to command stone itself. Mainstream archaeology approaches these silent mountains with a disciplined caution, grounded in the tangible evidence left behind. The professional consensus urges us to interpret these wonders not through the lens of lost supersciences, but through the immense, coordinated effort of human societies using the tools we know they possess. This perspective does not diminish the accomplishment, it reframes it. The primary explanation offered is one of time, organization, and skill on a scale we struggle to comprehend. Archaeologists point to the sheer power of a unified, state-sponsored workforce where thousands of laborers working in shifts across generations could achieve the impossible through relentless, cumulative effort. The absence of advanced tools at these sites is not proof they never existed, but rather a reflection of the archaeological record itself, which is inherently incomplete. Organic materials like wooden levers and fiber ropes decay, and metal tools were often recycled, leaving behind only the most durable stone and ceramic fragments. This methodological framework demands extraordinary evidence for extraordinary claims. Without physical proof of a forgotten technology, such as a unique tool or a detailed technical manual, the scientific process defaults to the simplest explanation that fits the known facts. This sometimes creates a tension between the awe we feel and the evidence we can hold. A prominent archaeologist specializing in ancient engineering once noted that every generation tends to underestimate the ingenuity of its ancestors. He suggested that what we perceive as a mystery is often just a gap in our own understanding of their sophisticated, yet entirely human methods. New discoveries are constantly pushing the boundaries of what we believe was possible. The recent identification of intricate stone-working workshops near some of these sites, for example, provides clearer pictures of the tool-making and labor organization involved. These findings slowly chip away at the mysteries, not by providing a single magical answer, but by revealing the complex, practical reality of these monumental projects. The archaeological establishment, therefore, lives with a degree of comfortable uncertainty. They acknowledge the genuine puzzles, the perfect polish on granite, the precise celestial alignments, and the staggering volumes of removed stone. Yet they treat these not as evidence of a historical anomaly, but as challenges to be solved through patient excavation and analysis. This rigorous, evidence-based approach is what protects the field from unsubstantiated speculation, but it also means that some questions remain tantalizingly open for years, even decades. The true story of these mountain chambers is still being written, one careful dig, one soil layer, one pottery shard at a time. This slow, methodical pursuit of knowledge may lack the drama of a single, revolutionary revelation, but it builds a foundation of understanding that, while sometimes incomplete, is built to last as long as the stones themselves. The polished silence of these ancient chambers has not gone unchallenged by modern hands. In workshops and quarries around the world, teams of skilled stonemasons and engineers have taken up the tools we believe were available: copper chisels, stone hammers, and sand abrasives, to put the theories to the test. Their goal is simple: to recreate the flawless surfaces and impossible seams found in places like the Barabar caves. The results are consistently humbling. One such project focused on replicating a small section of a polished granite wall. Highly experienced masons, using the prescribed tools, found the process agonizingly slow. The soft copper chisels blunted after just a few strikes against the hard stone, requiring constant resharpening. Achieving a simple, flat plane took weeks of painstaking labor, and the final surface, while smooth, remained a dull, matte finish. It lacked the deep, reflective, almost liquid quality of the ancient original. The most significant failure lies in the final polish. Using sand and water with manual rubbing, the team calculated it would take a single worker decades of non-stop work to achieve the glass-like shine on just 1 square meter of granite. This is not a matter of skill, but of physics. The quartz in granite is harder than the sand used to polish it, creating a fundamental limit that the ancient builders seemingly bypassed with ease. Another study attempted to replicate the perfectly tight joints between massive stones. Modern masons using diamond-tipped saws can achieve remarkably close fits. Yet even their best work, when compared to the ancient seams, appears crude. The modern joints under magnification show tiny microfractures and a slight waviness from the saw blade. The ancient interfaces are so seamless they appear fused, as if the two stone faces were once a single, continuous piece. The core challenge that every replication effort confronts is not a lack of effort, but a staggering gap in efficiency. The sheer volume of rock removed at sites like Kailasa or Longyou, when calculated with the demonstrated daily output of these experimental teams, would have required workforces of tens of thousands toiling for many centuries, a social and logistical impossibility that contradicts the established historical timeline. These modern experiments, conducted with scientific rigor, do not solve the mystery. Instead, they measure its dimensions, revealing a chasm between what we can accomplish with the tools we assume they had and what they demonstrably achieved. The stone itself seems to hold a secret that our best attempts to replicate only deepen. These silent stone chambers hold a hidden language of numbers and shapes. Behind the flawless walls and perfect arches lies a sophisticated command of mathematics that rivals our own. This was not simply about making a structure look pleasing. It was about encoding the universe's fundamental principles into the very bones of the earth. The evidence is etched into the stone itself. In the layout of the Kailasa temple, for instance, the ratio of its length to its width and the height of its central tower to the surrounding colonnades consistently reflects the golden ratio. This specific proportion, approximately 1.618 to 1, appears again and again in nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. The builders were weaving this universal constant of harmony directly into their mountain. The same mathematical fingerprint appears thousands of miles away in the dimensions of Petra's treasury and the subterranean halls of the Longyou grottoes. Even the constant pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, is masterfully integrated into the curved ceilings and arched doorways of sites across India and the Middle East. These were not accidental occurrences. They were the deliberate application of a sacred geometry, a belief that building in alignment with these cosmic patterns would imbue the structure with spiritual power and eternal stability. But how did they translate these abstract numbers into physical perfection with such basic tools? The answer lies in the clever application of simple principles. Without complex machinery, they relied on fundamental geometry. To create a perfect right angle deep inside a dark cave, they could have used a simple knotted rope. By tying knots at intervals of 3, 4, and 5 units, they could create a perfect triangle, guaranteeing a 90-degree angle every time. To ensure walls were perfectly parallel, they might have used water-filled trenches as massive, unerringly level guides. For carving a flawless circle or a consistent curve, a simple rope anchored to a central point would serve as a giant compass, allowing an artisan to score a perfect arc into the rock face. These methods required no advanced technology, only a profound understanding of geometric rules and the ingenuity to apply them on a monumental scale. The true genius was in their foresight, executing these designs from the outside in, with no room for error, trusting that their simple tools, guided by unshakable knowledge, would yield perfection in the dark. This knowledge was a living, breathing tradition, passed down not through written equations but through practice and oral teaching. A master builder would not hand an apprentice a scroll filled with calculations for pi. Instead, he would demonstrate the rope and compass method, teaching the body to understand the circle before the mind could even name the concept. The knowledge was embedded in songs, stories, and ritual practices, making it a seamless part of the culture's identity. This system of direct transmission ensured that the most vital technical skills were preserved across generations, even if the underlying mathematical theory was never formally written down. The geometric patterns repeated in carvings across different sites, from India to Ethiopia, acted as a visual language, a mnemonic device that reinforced these proportional systems for every artisan who looked upon them. The mathematical sophistication we see frozen in stone represents a dual triumph, a pinnacle of intellectual achievement working in perfect harmony with unparalleled technical skill, proving that the mind's ability to grasp abstraction can shape the very substance of a mountain. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not how they carved these mountains, but why. The immense investment of labor and resources only makes sense when we see these chambers not as buildings, but as profound spiritual statements. The drive to create a permanent, unshakable connection to the divine, or to immortalize a ruler's power, could motivate societies to achieve what pure practicality would never justify. Anthropologists note that when a project is infused with deep symbolic meaning, the very definition of what is possible expands. The need to house a god, to create a gateway to the afterlife, or to manifest a cosmic order on Earth could fuel generations of innovation. This cultural context transforms the mystery from one of engineering into one of human spirit. The precise celestial alignments at Abu Simbel, for example, were not just a technical display. They were a form of royal propaganda, a way for the pharaoh to demonstrate his literal harmony with the sun god, solidifying his divine right to rule for all eternity. The effort required to engineer that perfect shaft of light, piercing deep into a mountain, was a small price to pay for such a powerful political and spiritual message. Similarly, the hypnotic acoustics within the oracle chamber in Petra or the hypogeum in Malta were likely not accidental. They were carefully crafted sensory tools. In a ritual context, the way a specific chant could resonate through your entire body, or a whisper could be heard clearly across a dark hall, would have been a powerful or inspiring experience. It transformed a ceremony from something merely observed into something physically felt, convincing participants of a tangible connection to an unseen world. The choice to carve into living rock itself was the ultimate symbolic act. A built temple can burn or be torn down. A mountain, however, is eternal. By making the sacred space a part of the mountain, the builders were creating a testament they believed would last as long as the earth itself. This was about forging an unbreakable link between cultural identity and the permanent landscape. The sheer, polished walls of the Barabar caves, reflecting the flicker of a single lamp, were not for vanity. They created an environment of absolute purity and stillness, a blank canvas for the mind in deep meditation, where the outside world was completely erased. Understanding this deeper purpose helps explain the willingness to pursue such perfection. When a culture believes it is building for the gods or for eternity, the painstaking process of polishing a granite wall for a lifetime is not a Sisyphean task but a sacred duty. The technological leaps we puzzle over may have been born from this relentless pursuit of a higher ideal, where the only acceptable outcome was perfection itself. The smooth, silent walls of these chambers stand as a testament not just to technical skill, but to a breathtaking feat of human organization. Coordinating thousands of workers for decades, even centuries, at remote mountain sites presents a logistical puzzle that rivals the engineering one. Imagine the sheer scale of managing a workforce large enough to hollow out a mountain, ensuring they were fed, housed, and directed with a single purpose, generation after generation. At a site like the Kailasa temple, supporting a permanent workforce would have required a city to exist solely for its construction. The administration needed to track the flow of materials, manage specialized teams of quarrymen, carvers, and polishers, and solve the daily challenge of supplying food and water to a massive population in a location never meant to sustain one. Evidence of this sophisticated management is etched into the stone itself, not in the grand facades but in the forgotten corners. At some sites, archaeologists have found simple inscriptions left by work crews, marks that acted as signatures or tallies, indicating a system of accountability and perhaps even friendly competition between teams. The discovery of centralized tool-making workshops near several major projects reveals another layer of organization. Rather than every worker sharpening their own chisel, specialized artisans maintained and produced tools, ensuring consistency and efficiency. The very sequence of construction tells a story of meticulous planning. Projects often began not with the grand hall, but with the infrastructure, carving out water cisterns, access ramps, and temporary shelters first. This indicates a master plan was in place from the very beginning, a long-term vision that guided every strike of the hammer. What kind of social organization made this possible? It was likely a fusion of profound religious devotion and a highly structured, almost militaristic chain of command. A powerful central authority, whether a pharaoh, an emperor, or a priestly class, could mobilize vast resources and command labor as a form of tax or service. But such long-term efforts also required a deeply ingrained cultural belief in the project's sacred importance, a shared purpose that transformed backbreaking labor into an honored duty. This communal effort, where entire societies oriented themselves around a single, generation-spanning goal, may be the most profound lost technology of all. The polished stone is the final product, but it is the invisible framework of cooperation, administration, and unwavering belief that truly built these wonders. Their survival is a quiet testament to the builders' foresight. While the empires that commissioned them have turned to dust and their surface cities have crumbled under sun, wind, and war, these mountain-carved chambers remain, almost exactly as their creators left them. Their preservation is not a lucky accident, but the direct result of a brilliant architectural choice. By carving inward rather than building upward, the architects placed their work within the Earth's protective embrace. This single decision granted them a host of natural advantages that have defied the relentless passage of time. The mountain itself became a perfect climate control system, maintaining a constant, cool temperature year-round, shielding the delicate interiors from the destructive cycle of freezing and thawing that cracked stone monuments left in the open. It offered a formidable barrier against the elements, deflecting hurricanes, earthquakes, and the abrasive force of driving sand or rain. The structural stability is inherent, with the weight of an entire mountain distributing forces evenly, preventing the kind of collapse that can topple even the most carefully assembled freestanding building. The builders demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of geology, carefully selecting stable, solid rock formations and avoiding fault lines or areas prone to water seepage that could have led to catastrophic failure. They did not just carve into any mountain, they chose their canvases with the precision of a master engineer. This deep knowledge is further evidenced by the clever design features integrated directly into the stone. In Lalibela, an intricate network of drainage channels carved as part of the original design still functions perfectly today, channeling rainwater away from the sunken churches and preventing erosion and flooding. In Petra, the Nabateans carved protective cornices and drip lines above delicate facades, ensuring that rainfall would be shed away from the sculpted surfaces, preserving their sharp details for millennia. Even ventilation was considered, with strategically placed shafts in sites like the hypogeum in Malta allowing air to circulate, preventing the buildup of dampness and mold that would otherwise degrade the interior environment. The remarkable state of these sites provides us with our clearest evidence of their original form. The crispness of a chisel mark, the unblemished surface of a polished wall, the perfect integrity of a carved pillar, all of these things have been protected by the mountain. They offer a frozen moment, a pristine window into the past that allows us to study the builder's techniques with a clarity that is simply impossible at a ruined surface site. Their enduring perfection forces us to ask whether their primary purpose was not just for their own time, but as a legacy for the ages, a message carved in the most durable medium our planet offers, meant to endure long after the memory of their creators had faded from the world. Even the stones themselves cannot agree on their own age. For many of these mountain-carved chambers, the question of when they were created is a battlefield of competing timelines, where scientific data, architectural style, and historical records tell starkly different stories. This is not a matter of a few decades, but sometimes of millennia, creating a chronological puzzle that lies at the heart of the mystery. The primary tool for dating organic material, radiocarbon dating, can only provide clues from the context of a site. It can date a piece of charcoal from a worker's fire or pollen from the original floor, but it cannot directly date the stone carving itself. This leaves a frustrating gap, as the structure could be far older than the temporary camp set up beside it. Architectural analysis presents its own problems. When historians see classical columns at Petra, they logically place it within the timeline of Greek and Roman influence. But what if the Nabateans were not copying a foreign style, but working from a much older, local tradition that later converged with Mediterranean forms? This method relies on assumptions about cultural evolution that these sites seem to deliberately defy. Nowhere is this dating conflict more apparent than at the Barabar caves in India. The accepted history, based on inscriptions, places their creation in the 3rd century before the Common Era. Yet the sheer perfection of their polish and geometry feels out of place for that time, as if the technology required was already ancient when the Emperor Ashoka commissioned them. Some researchers point to the complete absence of tool-making debris or any signs of a learning curve, suggesting the techniques used were so refined they must have been perfected over a much longer period. Could these caves be the work of a far older, forgotten culture, simply rediscovered and inscribed by a later dynasty? The Longyou Grottoes present an even starker contradiction. Here, there are no inscriptions at all, no historical records, no cultural memory. When scientists attempted to date the site, they turned to the silt that had accumulated on the floors during its millennia underwater. The organic material within that silt suggested an age of at least 2,000 years, but this only tells us when the caves were abandoned and flooded. Their actual construction could be vastly more ancient, a possibility that conventional history struggles to accommodate without a complete rewrite. Other techniques, like thermoluminescence dating, which can measure when certain minerals were last exposed to heat, or geological analysis of weathering patterns on the exposed rock, often produce dates that push these sites further back in time. For structures that show no signs of technological progression, that appear fully formed and perfect from the very beginning, these earlier dates make a strange kind of sense. They suggest a timeline where the peak of this rock-cutting art was not a culmination, but a legacy. The controversies are more than just academic squabbles. They strike at the core of how we understand human history. If our dating methods, the very tools we use to map the past, cannot firmly place these monuments, then what else might be out of order? The silent, polished walls of these chambers challenge not only our ideas of how they were built, but also when, leaving us to wonder if the true story of human achievement is far older and far more mysterious than we have ever allowed ourselves to believe. A mountain is not just rock and stone in the human imagination, it is a symbol of the eternal. Across countless cultures, this shared perception transformed the very act of carving into a mountain from a construction project into a profound spiritual dialogue. The decision to create sacred spaces by subtraction rather than addition was a deliberate philosophical choice, rooted in a universal understanding of the mountain as an axis mundi, a cosmic pillar connecting the earthly realm to the heavens. In many traditions, from the Himalayas to the Andes, mountains were seen as the dwelling places of gods, the sources of life-giving rivers, and the immutable backbones of the world. To build a temple upon a mountain was one thing, but to make the mountain itself the temple was to fuse human devotion with the timelessness of the earth. This was an act of ultimate permanence, creating a legacy that could not be burned, toppled, or eroded, a statement meant to endure as long as the planet itself. The symbolic meaning infused into different landscapes reveals why this method was chosen despite its immense difficulty. In India, mountains like Mount Kailasa were viewed as the literal homes of deities. By carving the Kailasa temple as a scale model of that sacred peak, the builders were not merely creating a place of worship, they were replicating a divine geography, bringing the power of the god's abode into the human realm. In the Christian tradition of Lalibela, the descent into the sunken churches was a symbolic journey into the underworld and subsequent resurrection, a physical reenactment of spiritual passage. For the Nabateans at Petra, the act of carving elaborate facades into the rose-red cliffs was a display of mastery over a harsh desert environment, a declaration that their civilization could draw order and beauty from the most formidable of natural settings. The mountain represented a challenge, and by sculpting it, they demonstrated a harmony between human ingenuity and the raw power of nature. This philosophy of subtraction carries its own deep spiritual weight. When you build a structure, you assemble countless parts, creating something new and separate from the land. But when you carve, you are not adding, you are revealing. You are stripping away the superfluous to uncover the sacred form that was always waiting within the stone. This process mirrors many spiritual and philosophical paths that seek enlightenment through the removal of illusion, desire, and ego. The perfect chamber, the smooth wall, the resonant pillar, they were not built, they were discovered. The builders saw themselves as collaborators with the mountain, uncovering a pre-existing divine blueprint hidden within the rock. This mindset transforms the exhausting labor from a burden into a form of meditation or ritual, where each strike of the hammer is not an act of destruction, but one of revelation. Understanding this symbolic dimension finally answers the question of why. The incredible investment of time, resources, and human effort was not for practical shelter, but for a transcendent goal. It was the physical manifestation of a culture's deepest beliefs, a permanent prayer carved directly into the flesh of the world. The absence of modern blueprints is one of the most compelling parts of this mystery. How do you carve a multi-story temple from the top of a mountain down, with no room for error, without detailed plans to guide every single cut? The evidence suggests their design process was a dynamic interplay of vision and adaptation, a conversation with the stone itself. We find clues of this in subtle design shifts frozen in the rock. In the Kailasa temple, for instance, you can see places where the original plan for a wall or a pillar was clearly modified mid-construction, perhaps when the builders encountered a hidden fault line or an unusually hard vein of rock. They did not see this as a failure, but as an opportunity to refine their vision in real time, demonstrating a fluid, responsive approach to engineering. Maintaining precision over decades of such work required a robust system of measurement and communication. They likely used full-scale templates, carving key profiles and patterns directly onto the rock surfaces to guide the artisans. Master planners may have worked with smaller, detailed scale models made of clay or wood, allowing them to visualize the entire project and anticipate problems before a single ton of stone was removed. Yet the most vital tool may have been the cultivated skill of mental visualization. For the master builders, the finished temple was not a future possibility, but a form already existing within the mountain, waiting to be revealed. They trained their minds to see it, to hold the complete three-dimensional structure in their imagination, allowing them to direct the work with an almost intuitive sense of direction and proportion. This explains the breathtaking consistency of angles and curves, maintained by a shared mental blueprint passed down through a master-apprentice tradition. They translated this vision into reality using simple but unerring techniques. To ensure a wall remained perfectly vertical as they carved downward, they would have used long, weighted plumb lines. To maintain a consistent floor level across a vast chamber, they might have used water-filled channels as massive, naturally level guides. The process was a living one, where the plan was not a static document, but a growing, evolving understanding between the architects, the workers, and the mountain. This organic design philosophy challenges our modern reliance on fixed schematics, suggesting that true mastery lies not just in following a plan, but in the wisdom to adapt it in harmony with the material world. To truly grasp the scale of this achievement, we must place it beside the familiar. The entire history of architecture can be divided into two fundamental philosophies, the additive and the subtractive. Most of human construction is additive, a process of gathering and assembling. You quarry stone, shape it into blocks, transport them, and then carefully stack them into a wall, a pyramid, or a cathedral. This method has its own immense challenges, requiring sophisticated logistics, advanced mortar, and a deep understanding of load-bearing physics to prevent collapse. But it is also forgiving. A block can be recut if it is the wrong size. A wall can be dismantled and rebuilt. The process is modular and allows for adjustments along the way. Rock-cut architecture, by contrast, is a monumental exercise in commitment. It begins not with an empty plot of land, but with a solid, unforgiving mass. Every action is one of removal. There is no going back. A single misplaced chisel strike, one misjudgment in the thickness of a remaining wall, and the entire project could be ruined. The planning had to be clairvoyant, the execution flawless from the very first day. Why would any culture choose this vastly more difficult path when they possessed the knowledge to build structurally? The answer lies not in the limitations of their engineering, but in the power of their intent. Structurally, a freestanding temple is a guest upon the land. A rock-cut temple is the land itself transformed. This distinction carries profound symbolic weight. An assembled structure can be toppled by invaders, reclaimed by the forest, or dismantled for its stone. Its permanence is conditional, but a temple carved into a mountain possesses a permanence that mirrors the eternal. It cannot be easily destroyed because it is the mountain. It becomes a permanent part of the world's geography, a statement meant to outlast empires and languages. The choice was also one of sensory control. In a built structure, you are at the mercy of the external environment, of sunlight, sound, and temperature. But within a mountain, the architects could craft an entirely controlled reality. They could engineer perfect acoustics for chant, channel a single beam of light for a celestial event, and maintain a constant, cool temperature ideal for preservation and meditation. This created an immersive environment where every sensory detail could be curated for a specific spiritual or ceremonial experience. The technical knowledge required for each path diverges significantly. The structural builder must be a master of assembly, understanding how disparate parts interact under stress and gravity. The rock carver, however, must be a master of geology and visualization. They need an intimate knowledge of the stone's hidden fault lines, its grain, and its reaction to different tools. Their skill is one of revelation, seeing the finished form trapped within the raw stone and possessing the unwavering confidence to remove everything that is not that form. The rock-cut approach was not a primitive precursor to structural building. It was a deliberate, sophisticated, and spiritually charged alternative. It represents a different peak on the landscape of human ingenuity, one where the goal was not merely to construct a space, but to forge an unbreakable bond between human devotion and the enduring body of the earth. Yet the polished perfection of these chambers stands in stark contrast to the architectural record that followed. The sophisticated methods that produced them did not evolve into even greater wonders. They largely vanished from common practice. In the centuries after sites like the Kailasa temple and the Barabar caves reached their peak, the grand tradition of rock-cut architecture gradually gave way to structural building. Societies across the globe began to assemble their monuments from quarried blocks rather than carve them from living mountains. This was not a simple upgrade in technology, but a profound shift in philosophy and capability. The reasons for this decline are a historical puzzle in their own right. One primary factor was likely the immense social and economic cost. Carving a mountain required a long-term, centralized power with the unwavering will to command generations of labor for a single project. As empires fragmented and priorities shifted toward more immediate needs like defense and trade, the centuries-long commitment required for such endeavors became unsustainable. The knowledge itself was fragile, held by specialized guilds of artisans. When a dynasty fell or a region faced hardship, the master-apprentice chains that transmitted this nuanced understanding of stone, sound, and geometry could be broken forever. The techniques were not written down in manuals, they were carried in the hands and minds of the craftspeople, and when those hands were stilled, the knowledge disappeared with them. We see faint echoes of the old methods in a few surviving traditions. The stonemasons of India, for instance, still use a technique called jangha, a system of precise measurement and proportion passed down orally. In some parts of Ethiopia, artisans maintain methods for working soft stone that hint at a deeper ancestral knowledge, but these are fragments like scattered pages from a vast, burned library. They preserve the basic principles of craftsmanship but lack the transcendent level of execution seen in the ancient wonders. What was lost was not just a set of skills, but a holistic approach to the material world. The builders understood stone not as an inert substance to be conquered, but as a partner in creation. They possessed an intimate, almost spiritual, knowledge of how to manipulate its physical properties to achieve acoustic resonance, celestial alignment, and a finish that seems to defy the very nature of the material. Modern power tools give us force, but they do not give us this subtle, resonant understanding. The decline of these techniques represents one of history's great silences, a reminder that human progress is not a straight line upward, but a path with many forgotten turns, leading to peaks of achievement that we can still see in the distance but can no longer reach. The same stone surfaces that have baffled explorers for centuries are now being read by a new language, the precise data of modern science. Researchers are no longer limited to measuring tapes and sketches. They now deploy laser scanners that map every curve and angle with sub-millimeter accuracy. These three-dimensional digital models have revealed a startling consistency, exposing geometric patterns and alignments so perfect they were invisible to the naked eye. In the echoing chambers of Petra's tombs, acoustic engineers have used sensitive audio equipment to map the behavior of sound waves. They confirmed that the famous whisper in the oracle chamber is not a myth, but a carefully engineered phenomenon, a result of sound reflecting between parallel walls at precise angles to create isolated zones of clarity. This sophisticated acoustic design, now fully quantified, suggests the builders possessed a formal understanding of wave physics that we previously thought was impossible for their era. The investigation extends even deeper to the molecular level. Materials scientists have taken microscopic samples from the legendary polished walls of the Barabar caves. Their analysis reveals that the crystalline structure of the granite at the very surface has been altered, fused into a thin, glass-like layer through a process that typically requires intense, localized heat. This finding directly challenges the notion that these surfaces were created through endless manual polishing with sand and water, pointing instead to a technique that could temporarily transform the stone's very nature. Ground-penetrating radar has peered into the earth around sites like Lalibela, revealing extensive, unseen networks of tunnels and drainage systems that confirm the builder's genius for hydrological engineering. These non-invasive tools allow us to see the mountain's hidden anatomy without ever touching a chisel, preserving the sites while uncovering their secrets. Yet for every mystery solved, a new, more intricate puzzle emerges. The laser scans of the Longyou Grottoes confirm that every pillar, wall, and ceiling is carved with an unwavering consistency in angle and thickness, a feat of measurement that seems almost robotic. This precision has solved the question of how the structures remained standing for millennia, but it has simultaneously deepened the mystery of how such control was achieved in vast, dark, subterranean spaces. Science is providing the questions as often as the answers, proving that these silent mountains still have profound stories to tell. The same perfection that has preserved these chambers for millennia now faces its greatest threat, our own presence. These sites have become global treasures, drawing millions of visitors whose footsteps and breath slowly erode the very wonders they come to admire. In Petra, the sheer volume of tourists has accelerated the weathering of the soft sandstone facades, while in Lalibela, the constant humidity from crowds gathering in the sunken churches encourages the growth of destructive microalgae on the ancient walls. Beyond the wear of tourism, environmental pressures intensify. Climate change brings more extreme weather, from flash floods that threaten the hydraulic systems of Petra to prolonged droughts that crack the foundations of monuments. Political instability in some regions can halt conservation efforts and leave sites vulnerable to neglect or looting, severing the vital connection between a community and its heritage. The central challenge is a delicate balancing act: how to allow the public to experience these marvels without loving them to death. The solution requires a mosaic of modern preservation techniques. At many locations, sophisticated monitoring systems now track minute shifts in the stone, humidity levels, and structural integrity. To protect delicate surfaces, barriers and viewing platforms keep visitors at a safe distance, preventing the cumulative damage of countless touches. In some tombs, controlled lighting has been installed to replace the harsh, damaging effects of direct sunlight and flash photography. Perhaps the most effective strategy involves managing the flow of people itself. Some sites have implemented timed ticketing or restricted access to the most fragile areas, allowing the stone to rest and recover. The preservation of these places is not just a technical problem, it is a human one. The most successful efforts actively involve the local communities whose identities are intertwined with these monuments. In Lalibela, the church itself trains and employs local residents as guardians and guides, ensuring that the site's spiritual significance is respected alongside its physical preservation. Their deep, generational knowledge of the land and the seasonal cycles makes them invaluable partners in conservation. For these communities, the sites are not mere relics of a dead past, they are living, breathing pillars of cultural identity. The mountain-carved church is not a museum piece, it is the heart of their spiritual practice. The tomb is not just an archaeological site, it is a link to their ancestors. This profound connection transforms preservation from a scientific duty into a sacred trust. The ongoing struggle to protect these wonders connects the ancient mystery of their creation directly to our modern responsibility. We are now the guardians of a legacy we cannot fully explain, tasked with ensuring that the silent questions carved into these mountains will still be there for generations to come, waiting to be answered. These silent mountains tap into a deep, almost primal human need for mystery. We are drawn to these enigmas not for the answers they provide, but for the profound questions they force us to ask about our own story. Each perfectly polished wall stands as a direct challenge to the comfortable narrative of linear progress, the idea that human history is a simple, upward march from primitive to advanced. We are taught that technology evolves in a straight line, yet here we have structures that suggest a different path entirely, one with peaks of achievement that we cannot easily map or explain. This creates a powerful cognitive dissonance, a mental friction between what we think we know and what the evidence before us so clearly demonstrates. Our minds struggle to reconcile the official timeline with the physical reality of a granite chamber polished to a liquid shine. This internal conflict is not a flaw, it is the very engine of curiosity. Psychological research into human motivation shows that this state of not knowing, when faced with a compelling puzzle, is a powerful driver. It engages our brains in a unique way, triggering a deep-seated desire to resolve the inconsistency, to close the gap in our understanding. This is why we keep returning to these sites, both in person and in our imaginations. They are not passive ruins, they are active participants in a dialogue with us across time. They resist easy categorization, forcing us to reconsider the capabilities of our ancestors and, by extension, the potential lying dormant within our own species. The mystery of their creation is inseparable from the mystery of human ingenuity itself. It suggests that our history is not a closed book, but a living text with missing chapters we are only beginning to sense. This is the true power of these places. They remind us that the past is not a settled fact, but a landscape still ripe for discovery, holding secrets that can reshape our vision of who we are and what we are capable of achieving. These silent mountains are more than ancient puzzles, they are active classrooms carved in stone. They teach us that history is not a list of dates to memorize, but a dynamic field of inquiry, where a single polished wall can challenge everything we thought we knew about human progress. The very existence of these chambers forces a crucial educational skill, critical thinking. Students and researchers are not handed neat answers. Instead, they are presented with a physical contradiction that demands they question established narratives and consider multiple possibilities. This mystery naturally fosters an interdisciplinary approach, a lesson modern science is only now fully embracing. To understand Kailasa Temple, you cannot be just an archaeologist. You must also be a geologist to analyze the stone, an acoustic engineer to map the sound, an astronomer to decode the alignments, and an anthropologist to grasp the cultural drive that made it possible. These sites dissolve the artificial boundaries between subjects, showing that true understanding emerges at the intersections. This holistic view cultivates a profound intellectual humility. We are reminded that our current technological dominance does not grant us a monopoly on genius. The builders of Lalibela or Barabar possessed a deep, nuanced knowledge of their environment and materials that we are still struggling to reverse engineer. Their achievements stand as a permanent check on our arrogance, teaching us that past civilizations reached peaks of accomplishment that our own timeline has yet to chart. This humility is not about feeling inferior, but about opening our minds to a wider, more complex, and far more interesting human story. The educational value extends into urgently modern lessons about sustainability and long-term planning. The Nabateans did not conquer their desert environment with brute force. They harmonized with it, creating a water management system that turned a barren landscape into a thriving city. Their civilization lasted for centuries not by fighting nature, but by listening to it and engineering elegant, lasting solutions. This stands in stark contrast to the short-term thinking that often dominates our own projects. These ancient builders worked on timescales that spanned generations, their vision so clear and their purpose so unwavering that they could invest in projects they themselves would never see completed. This lesson in intergenerational responsibility, in building for a future you will not inhabit, is perhaps one of the most vital they can teach us. Today, these sites are integral to educational programs across the globe. University students in engineering visit Petra to study its hydraulics, while art history classes analyze the narratives woven into Kailasa's sculptures. In China, the Longyou Grottoes serve as a captivating case study for archaeology students, a real-world mystery that textbooks cannot solve. These places ignite a spark of curiosity that pure theory often fails to kindle. They inspire new generations of researchers not to simply accept the past, but to actively engage with it, to ask better questions, and to look for the hidden patterns that connect human achievement across the ages. The greatest lesson these stone chambers offer is that our ancestors were not primitive, they were profound. Their legacy is not a closed book, but an ongoing conversation, one that continues to expand our understanding of history, engineering, and the limitless potential of the human spirit. The polished silence of these chambers is not an ending, but an invitation. For researchers across the globe, the greatest questions are only now coming into focus, driven by the very mysteries these sites present. One of the most fundamental puzzles is the question of time itself. How can we accurately date the moment a chisel first struck the rock, when the stone itself holds no carbon to measure? New techniques like cosmogenic nuclide dating offer a glimmer of hope, potentially allowing scientists to determine how long ago a rock surface was first exposed by human hands, finally providing a solid timeline for sites like the Longyou Grottoes that lack any historical record. Another frontier lies in the molecular realm. Advanced spectrometry and electron microscopy are now being used to analyze the atomic structure of the legendary polished surfaces. The goal is to definitively identify the chemical and thermal processes that created that glass-like layer on granite. Was it a secret polishing agent, a plant-based chemical treatment, or a form of applied heat we have yet to comprehend? Researchers are actively taking microscopic samples, searching for the unique elemental signature of the tools or techniques used, hoping to find a recipe that has been lost for millennia. Alongside this, sophisticated ground-penetrating radar and laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy are being deployed to non-invasively map the hidden substructures of these sites. This allows teams to see the full extent of tunnel networks, drainage systems, and even potential hidden chambers without ever disturbing the stone, revealing the complete architectural blueprint for the first time. Several ambitious projects are already underway. At the Barabar caves in India, a collaborative international team is creating ultra-high-resolution, three-dimensional acoustic models. They are mapping how sound waves interact with every contour of the walls and ceilings, aiming to digitally reconstruct the original sonic environment and understand the precise mathematical principles the builders used to achieve such powerful resonance. In Lalibela, geologists and structural engineers are conducting a comprehensive survey of the bedrock, using seismic sensors to monitor minute shifts and water flow patterns. Their work aims to not only preserve the churches for future generations, but to finally understand how the builders so accurately assessed the mountain's internal stability to carve such massive, free-standing forms without causing a collapse. When asked, many researchers express a cautious optimism. They believe that with these new tools, the practical questions of logistics and labor organization at sites like Petra are the most likely to be solved. We may soon have a much clearer picture of the workforce size, their daily lives, and the intricate supply chains that supported these decades-long projects. However, the deeper mysteries may prove more stubborn. The source of the inspiration, the transmission of the core geometric knowledge, and the specific cultural or spiritual imperatives that drove such perfection are embedded in the intangible realm of human belief. These aspects of the mystery might always retain an element of the unknown. This ongoing research ensures that our understanding is never static. Each new scan, each soil sample, and each acoustic reading adds another piece to a puzzle that is far from complete, reminding us that the story of these mountains is still being written, one careful discovery at a time. These silent mountains leave us not with answers, but with a deeper, more profound set of questions. We are faced with walls polished to an impossible gleam, with seams so tight they seem to deny the very concept of separate blocks. We have encountered chambers tuned like musical instruments to amplify specific sounds, and monuments aligned with the sun and stars with an astronomer's precision. The same incredible features appear across the globe, in cultures separated by oceans and centuries, suggesting a shared, perhaps lost, understanding of stone and space. And perhaps most haunting of all, we find achievements of staggering scale like the Longyou grottoes that history forgot entirely, leaving no name, no date, and no reason for their creation. These are not isolated oddities, they are a pattern, a chorus of mysteries carved in stone that challenges the very timeline of human progress. They remind us that our past is not a simple, linear story of gradual improvement, but a rich and complex landscape filled with peaks of accomplishment we are still struggling to map. These sites speak volumes about the universal human spirit, about our diverse ways of seeking the divine, and about that deep, unshakable drive to create something that will outlast us, to etch our mark directly onto the body of the earth itself. They teach us a vital lesson in humility, showing that the ingenuity of our ancestors could achieve results that our own powerful tools and advanced knowledge cannot easily replicate. In the end, these mountain-carved chambers stand as silent, enduring witnesses to capabilities we are only beginning to glimpse. They invite us to remain curious, to question the established narratives, and to look upon the ancient world not as a closed book, but as a living mystery, still holding secrets about who we are and what we can achieve. What do these incredible places make you wonder about our shared human past? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation.